Lana Decor family, welcome back. If winter has you craving warmth, story, and soul, you are in the right place. Today we are layering vintage charm with thrifted treasures to create a rustic, collected farmhouse look that feels cozy, honest, and beautifully lived in. Grab your cocoa, settle in, and let's spark fresh inspiration from time-worn pieces and simple textures. Ready to transform your winter corners? Let's begin. In this cozy farmhouse corner, the humble beauty of Stoneware crocks carries the feeling of winter gathered from the woods. Birch logs rise like pale columns, while cedar clippings and peppered juniper berries speak of crisp air and quiet mornings. The floorboards creak with history, and a scatter of pine cones anchors the arrangement in nature. Candlelight rolls over glazed surfaces, catching hairline crazing and soft imperfections that make everything feel human and real. This is not a showroom, it is a life. The vignette reminds us that winter comfort is built from simple materials, mindful placement, and patient hands that honor use. On the wall, a tobacco basket turns into a frame for winter memory, its woven slats cradling a simple evergreen wreath. Time-worn postcards clip along the rim, their foxed edges and faded inks whispering travels, relatives, and holidays mailed with care. Below, ironstone, brass, and dried citrus create a hush of neutral glow, letting texture lead. Sunlight stripes the shiplap, and the room breathes at a slower pace, as if snow has muffled the world outside. Here, collected things gain new purpose. Handmade patience becomes decor. Winter feels gathered, not bought, and every scrap of age tells you to linger. Suspended above the table, a vintage-produced scale becomes a winter stage where utility and charm meet. Walnuts and pine cones cradle a tiny bottle brush tree, making a small forest rise inside a shallow bowl of metal and patina. Below, checked linen softens the scene, while a stack of cookbooks and a tarnished spoon nod to everyday rituals. The scale's numerals arc like a smile, catching a glint of light and memory. Nothing is extravagant. Everything is intentional, gathered, and grateful. It feels like a pause between chores, a breath before cocoa is poured, and conversation begins under quiet, gentle glow. An antique butter churn stands sentry beside the window, its staves banded by twine and its purpose rewritten by pine boughs reaching upward. Dried grasses rustle softly, suggesting fields at rest under frost. The glass panes glow silver with cold daylight, and a ladder draped in wool waits like a quiet promise. At the base, a humble clay pot and ironstone pitcher ground the vignette with earthy confidence. Every nick and scratch becomes narrative. This is a winter altar to frugality and grace, proof that tools can retire into beauty. The room exudes kindness, thrift, and the rhythm of seasons. Along the farmhouse table, a galvanized chicken feeder becomes a tranquil river of light. Vintage tapers nestle within its trough, while cedar and juniper sprigs weave between metal ribs, releasing their clean, resinous hush. Star anise and cloves scatter like small constellations, scenting the air with comfort. A grain sack runner offers stripes of quiet order, and the tabletop's saw marks keep the story grounded. Nothing shouts. Everything glows. This thrifted assembly shows how winter welcomes patience and modesty, transforming remnants into radiance. It feels generous yet restrained, a quiet ritual shared with friends. Crossed wooden snowshoes climb the wall like emblems of travel through white silence, their leather bindings burnished by seasons past. A twine-tied tuft of cedar anchors the center, sending a whisper of green into the neutral calm. Below, a bench gathers scarves, a plaid cushion, and an enamel mug that still holds a little warmth. Empty frames echo the geometry, letting light and shadow make the artwork. The palette stays low and thoughtful, so the textures sing. Here, adventure and hearth meet halfway, and the home accepts both. The room remembers snow squeaks and laughing returns from the trail. On a narrow sideboard, apothecary jars become winter lanterns, cranberries floating beneath tea lights like tiny garnets under stars. Flames flicker and multiply inside glass walls, casting little waves across beadboard and brightening the corners that usually go unnoticed. Cedar tips and cinnamon sticks rest on a tray, joining fragrance with gentle color. The simplicity encourages you to breathe deeper, to quiet your hands, to notice the ways thrifted pieces carry light. In this glow, winter is invited to linger without fuss, and hospitality arrives softly. It is simple, luminous, and deeply welcoming on long winter nights. An arrangement of old breadboards turns the wall into a wooden quilt, every knife mark and rounded edge speaking of meals that fed real lives. A strand of raw wooden beads drapes loosely across, keeping the eye moving without noise. On the console below, a small stoneware bowl cradles cloves and pine needles, letting scent and memory mingle. Morning light grazes the boards, lifting their grain like topography. It is a quiet study in warmth without color, in depth without fuss. Made from workhorses, not showpieces, this collage honors everyday effort and proves usefulness can age into effortless beauty. A vintage typewriter sits patiently at a desk, its keys glimmering like small footsteps across a snowy field. A winter poem feeds through the platen, curling slightly at the top, as if warmed by breath. A brass lamp makes a circle of amber that shelters ink, paper, and thought. Nearby, a tartan thermos and dried wheat contribute their grounded rhythms. The plaster wall keeps its hairline stories, refusing to pretend. This is winter's library of the everyday, made from objects that survived and stayed. It is intimate and sincere, a refuge for words and memory. You can almost hear the ribbon of a page being turned. Propped along the mantel, perforated tin panels from an old pie safe become screens for gentle fire. Behind them, pillar candles throw constellations through punched stars, sending pattern across corbels and worn hymnals. A cedar swag rests along the edge, releasing its crisp breath in small intervals. The metals are pewter and patient. The paint is chippy and forgiving. Together they create a hush where you can hear paper turn and will settle. This thrifted arrangement remembers kitchens, recipes, and warmth handed down. It lingers like a lullaby, steadying the season with honest light. A wooden grain sieve finds a second life as a wreath, its circle offering a natural mat for cedar tips, dried oranges, and a tiny tin star. Torn muslin ties it to a peg with casual grace, and below, a bowl of walnuts and a pair of mittens keep watch. Whitewashed planks behind the vignette feel like open sky. The colors are minimal, so the textures carry emotion: rind, needle, fabric, shell. It is winter craft at its gentlest, made from what the pantry and the yard can spare, and hung with gratitude. The doorway seems to breathe easier with such humble ceremony. Open farmhouse shelves become a winter garden of milk glass, translucent whites arranged in quiet conversation. Every vase and compote holds a small offering, cedar, pine cones, or the soft red of rose hips. An ironstone platter leans behind, anchoring the composition with simple stature, while a folded linen runner suggests hospitality held in reserve. Frosted daylight drapes across the collection and reveals a spectrum of whites you only notice when you slow down. Nothing here is rare. Everything is respected. Light, shape, and shadow do the work, and the room relaxes into serenity. Together, these pieces prove that restraint can feel remarkably abundant. Within a chippy metal birdcage, a winter terrarium gathers stories at a miniature scale. Moss and faux snow make a small forest floor, while a tiny evergreen stands steady beside a brass bell. A candle outside the cage projects lacework shadows across the table, and a curled book page adds a literary wink. Nearby, a wooden spool and frayed linen keep the palette humble. This vignette is playful without being precious, reminding us that wonder survives in small spaces. It invites a closer look, a slower glance, a kinder breath for the day. Look closer and you will notice patience, resourcefulness, and delight. Along a reclaimed wooden rail, vintage cowbells hang like notes in a rustic scale, each bell tuned by time and use. A fine cedar garland threads through the hooks, softening the metal with living green, while a single red ribbon keeps the mood celebratory without shouting. Below, a bench collects boots and a folded blanket, suggesting comings and goings that mark winter days. The textures are the story: leather, wood, metal, needle. Together they sound like home, even in silence. This is farmhouse music for the eyes, made from thrift and memory. Even without sound, you sense gatherings, chores, and celebrations nearby. Inside the farmhouse cupboard, brown and red transferware gathers like a chorus, patterns softened by years of use. Plates lean, teacups stack, and cedar tips thread between them, sharing space with dried citrus and a strand of wooden beads. A linen runner buffers clinks and keeps everything calm. The cool winter light clarifies every floral, every line that once felt formal and now feels friendly. Nothing is fussed. Everything is placed with care and permission to exhale. It is a cabinet of affection, thrift, and quiet celebration. It feels generous, familiar, and quietly celebratory. On a scarred countertop, stacked cigar boxes become a cocoa station that remembers nights worth repeating. Compartments hold packets, spices, and tarnished teaspoons like treasures waiting their turn. A tiny enamel mug crowns the tower, and a plaid napkin adds a hint of warmth. A sprig of pine leans in, and a shimmer of faux snow gives permission to feel festive. Candlelight pools nearby, offering glow without hurry. This is winter's invitation to pause, to stir, to sip, to share. Made from simple pieces with real history, it turns routine into ritual. It asks you to slow down and savor every warm sip. Thanks for spending winter moments with Lana Decor. Today we explored how vintage patina, thrifted finds, and natural greens can turn simple spaces into soulful farmhouse retreats. If these ideas warmed your home and heart, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment with your favorite vignette or find. Your support helps this community grow. Until next time, stay cozy, stay creative, and keep decorating with story.